China's been signaling this opening in the financial sector for insurance, asset management, securities, and so forth for some time. I think it was first officially announced last November. And I think it'll be quite beneficial for China. The former Governor Zhou Xiaochuan of the central bank said that Chinese banks are lazy. They need more competition.
Or at least not so efficient.
Yeah, so they need more competition. In terms of the opportunities for foreigners, I think it's potentially quite large, particularly in asset management. China's a high-saving economy. Most of the savings are in plain vanilla bank deposits. And I think once you have some of the methodologies and practices of foreign asset managers coming into the market, they will capture quite a bit of assets for management for Chinese households.
So that means how wide-ranging will that be? Will it cover just asset management, bonds, securities, and insurance? How wide-ranging it will be, Mr. Chen?
Well, I think that the momentum for market access opening up is already ongoing and it will not stop only at the financial sectors. It will, as President Xi has made quite clearly, that it will expand to the other service industry, other aspects of service industry, including, I think that in the future, education, logistics, Medicare, etc. I think the list will be ongoing. Don't forget that President Xi and the Chinese government also promised that Chinese government is going to speed up its effort of facilitating the negotiation on WTO's governmental procurement agreement, which if could be completed or concluded within the near future, it will also a big plus for the market access for the international investors.
And Mr. Lardy, I understand there are some concerns in America about fair playing field and market access into China. Do you think the signal is strong enough that they will find it more comfortable getting deeper into Chinese market, especially in those areas that you mentioned?
I think so. Obviously, there's some questions on timing. We're talking about going to majority ownership fairly soon in some of these areas and maybe 100% foreign ownership after a period of several years. But the exact details haven't been spelled out yet. In other areas, I think there will be more market access. President Xi talked about reducing tariffs in some areas. For example, imported automobiles, and I think a number of other areas there'll be more access for foreign products and services.
Let's talk a little bit about IPR, because that's another area that is being debated among academia and business people. Have China done a good job in terms of IPR protection, historically speaking?
Well, I think the safest thing to be said is that it has improved over the last several decades. I think it was very weak in the 80s and 90s, but it has gotten better and better. And I think that's actually been lost sight of in the debate. Particularly the criticism in the United States talks about weaknesses in China's IPR regime without giving any credit for the progress that has been made already. The establishment of a separate court system to deal with IPR cases. And I think it's coming about because there are a lot of Chinese entrepreneurs that want protection for their intellectual property. They share the same goal of this as foreign companies would as well. And I think President Xi gave a pretty strong statement that there would be further improvements in this area, including the reconstitution of the State Intellectual Property Office.
Yes, well, these are just policy announcements from top leaders. But the question is the enforcement. Will investors have faith in the court, in the enforcement team about whether these things will be protected on the ground? What do you think might be the challenges down the road?
Well, I think that I agree with Nick's analysis that it is an ongoing process. And we, of course, we will admit the progress China has already made. And the 19-party Congress, as well as Xi Jinping's speech this morning, just reiterate the importance of institutional building, capacity building of those enforcement, including rebuilding or restructuring of IPR Administrative Bureau, which will largely improve the discoordination or less efficiency of those enforcement in the past decades. Those areas of IPR, including trademarks, copyright, as well as the other part, they are under the jurisdiction of the different parts that make those enforcement process extremely fragmented and less efficient. So I think that those institution rebuilding will help a lot. But of course, it's a good it will impose another big challenge for the integration itself.
But what are the ways that the Chinese government and business communities can do to assuage those concerns and let investors be more comfortable coming to transfer their technology or establish joint ventures?
Well, I don't think there's anything the government can say that will fully satisfy foreign investors. I think what foreign investors want to do is to see what actually happens. What actually happens. China's had very good intellectual property protection laws.
What might be a typical example that investors want to see?
Well, for example, I think in some cases, for example, even when a foreign investor wins a case in the court in China, the fines are so small that the foreign investors think it's not a sufficient deterrent from somebody taking their intellectual property and misappropriating it. So it's the operation, not the law. Yeah, it's the way the laws are enforced, the nature of the fines. So it's fine for a foreign firm to find that the court is supporting their position if they have the evidence.
Okay.
But if the fine is very small, then the function's not really being served.
And I believe the direction is that way.
Yes, I definitely agree with Nick's argument that we should raise the violation cost and also give them more biting teeth to this new bureau instead of just barking.
Okay.